Now, when the Muslims came here, enslaved from Africa, many of them were practicing their religion. They were praying and they were fasting. And it took the slave owners several plots to remove Islam from their home. So what did they do? First, they removed the Arabic language from the Muslims. The African Muslims that came here, they spoke Arabic, but they removed it from them. And this is an old tactic to harm the Muslims. As Sheikh Uthaymeen, he said, before the independence of Algeria, the French ruler said, we will not prevail over the Algerians as long as they read the Quran and speak Arabic. We must remove the Quran from their presence and uproot Arabic from their tongue. Number two, the slaves were forced to marry non-Muslim women. They made the Muslim men slaves marry Christian women and pagan women. And they made the Muslim women marry the pagan and Christian men. Today, they don't have to force our youth to do that. Unfortunately, many of our Muslim youth, they choose to marry the non-Muslim women over the Muslim women. They choose to date them instead of marrying the Muslim women. Although Allah Ta'ala said, وَلَأَمَّةٌ مُؤْمِنَةٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكَةٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَتْكُمْ. And indeed, the Muslim woman, even if she be a slave, she's better than the free pagan woman, even if she impresses you. And the same thing applies to our young women. Some of them would rather date a pagan than to marry a Muslim man. But Allah Ta'ala said, وَلَا عَبْدٌ مُؤْمِنٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكُمْ. And the believing man, even if he be a slave, is better than the pagan man, even if you are impressed by him. Number three, they began to change the names of the Muslims. When these interreligious couples had children, they forced them to take Anglo names. And the assignment of anglicized names rather than Islamic names to the children, when they had at least one Muslim parent, it was a subtle way of removing the identity of the Muslims. But now they don't force you to change your name. But you'll find a Muslim named Muhammad and he'll tell his friends, my name is Mo, so he can fit in. And number four, they had things that would impress the Muslim children. You know, the Muslims in Brazil had a sizable Muslim community, but they said in 1865, they saw most of the Muslim children embracing Christianity, not because it was the truth, but because they saw the festivals and they liked the music and the dances, and they saw the only one who was different was their father. So they deemed him to be a liar, and they went with the majority. The historians say, Yaquan, Orthodox Islam was in America, brought by the enslaved Africans, but it didn't survive because they failed to transmit it to their children and convert non-Muslims. But think about this. Despite the fact that the Muslims came here from Africa and were enslaved in a foreign land, and all the above mentioned tactics were used to erase Islam from their families, along with murder, rape, and torture from their European oppressors. Despite all of this, it still took them 2 or 3 generations to get Islam out of their home. So think about this. If we as Muslim parents from a first generation, or those who came from a Muslim country who are raising your children here in the first generation, if we watch our children leave Islam, it means that we are losing Islam faster than the Muslims who came here in the transatlantic slave trade. Imagine that. And I understand it's hard to be a Muslim teenager in America in 2021. But Salih Bilali, he was a Muslim teenager in America in the 1800s. He was abducted in Mali when he was 14 years old. And 60 years of enslavement later, his owner, James Hamilton Cooper, wrote about him saying, he is a strict Muslim. He abstains from liquor. And he keeps the various fasts, especially Ramadan. And the owner of his son said, the last thing I heard him say is, Allah is God, Muhammad is the Prophet. A teenager, fasting, staying away from drugs in the 1800s as a slave. You can't do that in 2021?